Welcome everyone. To set the tone, I want to start here. So let's all collectively get excited again for the fact that this is real.
Frau Russo, guten Morgen.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Wouldn't start without you.
Das ist für Ihre Soldaten.
Danke, das ist sehr nett von Ihnen.
Kein Problem. Einen schönen Tag noch.
Hey Jungs, schaut, was wir haben.
Was ist das? Forward to the church!
Watch for enemy fire!
Company, send in the planes, now!
Where those planes, Summers? I'm sorry, keep it waiting, boys. Bombs away!
Dude, the end of that trailer is so goddamn exciting, showing the Africa campaign. What more do you want? They're obviously not showing us that now, but everybody welcome. This is going to be partly an analysis and partly a look back at 2018 and 2019, specifically some hopes and dreams that were kind of aggregated into an article, 2 articles, and what we got from Relic when they showed this. AE, that was a sick tournament, by the way. I love to see the map making stuff still being pushed, and that last match was off the chain. Those guys played great. So we're going to start with the 2018 article, the original, that kind of sets the stage and it has a lot of the more core stuff. And what we've seen so far is not, obviously it's not final, but I want to start in a place where we can focus on what's important here. I hear a lot of people talking about like the art and balance. Not a lot of people, but some people talking about art and balance, and that stuff's just not important. None of that stuff matters right now. What matters are how the game is constructed. Because if the game gets constructed early in a way that it can't be fixed, which is what large portions of Code 2 to this day are, that, then we have a problem. So far, what we've seen is not that, and I am so happy to say that. So let's take a look. Whoop. We're going to just run down the line here. Probably, arguably, the most important thing is the fact that the resource system, one of the most important things is the fact that the resource system it's a strange hybrid, actually, because the fact that we have individual points, we have fuel, we have munis that have different levels. We have plus 5, 10, and 16s, just like Co. 1. We have the standard manpower points. That is all of critical importance, because the complexity of the maps that you're able to design in Code 2 it's hugely stymied by the fact that we're sitting on this Code 2 system with these hybrid points. That's a massive win for Code 3. I can't overstate how important that's going to be in the future. However, there are some strange bits in the current alpha, which are things like the fact that the points are capped at different speeds, but I think I'm just going to open up I'm going to open up the, here it is, the Google Doc that's going to drive the new article and run down to, yes, there's a lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff. Oh, I went too far. These are the current capping speeds in Code 3. I took some measurements the other day. Manpower is capped the fastest, but we have things like the plus 5 munis caps in 20 seconds, and then the larger points cap faster for some reason. These are small things we're going to have to work out over time, obviously. But in general, this resource system is hugely important. These are the 3 skirmish maps I've started to look at. So the resource system, I'd say, is a W. The pop cap doesn't seem to be connected to the resources, which I think is probably a good thing. I've heard arguments both ways for that, but resources are looking good. The capping circle art. Capping circle has actually been really interesting because they've standardized what the capping circles look like. You can't, in the world builder, you're not going to be able to modify individual squares to get a capping circle. It looks like it's standardized, which might be good. I'm hoping they'll let us in the world builder change how big and small the diameter of the capping circles are in order to add more flexibility. And I think capping circles generally are a better approach than the Co-1 capping, which is you right-click the point. The individual model that's capping is contacting the point, and the rest are fighting, but the squad takes more damage over time. So capping circles are in. That's honestly fine with me. Victory points also don't take up their own sector. In Code 2, VPs can take up their own sector, and that's not a thing in Code 3, which is also a good. So we're looking at all these things with resources, victory points, capping. That whole aggregate of systems looks right. It doesn't look. They didn't do anything weird or maybe broken. Might help if the squad inside circle gets registered. Maybe it can be a bit wonky in Code 2. Yeah, it's hard because when you're doing development like this, there are going to be little pieces that people are going to want to fix, and they should be fixed when you're done, but it's really important that we focus on the fundamental parts that need to either be fixed or worked on now. It's so important. The community's leverage on improvements right now will not be better than it is now. So when Relic has that Company Heroes 3 introduction and the developer's standing there and he's talking to you, telling you we want feedback, they're not joking. I've heard some people, I've talked to some people and we've seen some things like this. Feels like some people have claimed maybe it's a little bit exploitive, but because this is all free labor. But in reality, they're giving us this alpha for nothing. It costs us nothing, and we get to play it and give them direct feedback, and they get to, improve the system on everyone's different computers for optimization, etc. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but moving on. XP art. I actually have not seen any XP art, guys. I don't know if you've seen too much of that. So this chunk is kind of work in progress, I'm sure, for Relic. Veterancy is clearly the earned veterancy from Code 2, which I'm totally okay with. So that's kind of a layup. The unit tracking is interesting because they've set it up so that this unit tracking is it's like moved to the bottom center, but they're allowing you to move it to the bottom or the right, which is okay. It's possible that parts of the veterancy aren't exactly this. Yeah, like Orange Pest is saying here, there are more choices and variety between factions. That's true. Like the way that you gain veterancy between Americans and Brits is the same, but the result of the veterancy is different, which is fine. And another thing to remember, guys, is that we're looking at this from a perspective of being able to skirmish with AI and play a campaign. The stuff that you see that the AI that you're skirmishing against, you're not going to be able to test. And what everyone sitting here wants is to be able to test stuff and play in multiplayer. It's not ready for multiplayer, Relic thinks, which is fair, I think. And we need to hammer out a lot of this stuff to make the multiplayer not frustrating, because it would be frustrating right now if we tried to play. There'd be so many glitches and bugs. It would be hard to determine what's working and what's not. So once we zone in on that, that's going to be much better. The Germans have bought veterancy. I don't know. The Co-1 Germans did, but I haven't seen that. They don't have bought veterancy, says Orange Pest. I trust his feedback there, so there you go. In any case, the unit tracking is still in the game. That's an excellent addition. There's one part in both articles that I don't disagree with myself looking at this over time, which is this. Part of me thinks that this edition makes it too easy to preserve units. I don't agree with that anymore. That's the only part in both articles that I changed my mind on over time. Having these in is absolutely the correct thing to do. Moving on, mod support. We don't know. Are they going to support modding? I don't know. They've said they're going to, so I'm just going to move on from that one. Statistics. There's an enormous potential to track information and data in individual games and in aggregate from the player's perspective. Like, obviously, Relic can do this, but if they wanted to, but giving us information post-game and out of game. So when you're on menus, you should be able to look at your own stats and data and past games that you don't have to load into and, watch the whole game to see stats, things like that. The amount of stats that could be shown off and could be kind of played with, let me zoom in a little bit more for you guys, is not where it should be in either Co. Both Co's have massive improvements potential, and we haven't seen any of that in Co 3, so I'm going to pass on. Wounded vehicles. The wounded vehicles system in Co 1 is better in every way that matters. Being able to quickly identify problems with vehicles at a glance and not having to wonder what symbol that you're seeing here and on your vehicle, and when there's lots of them stacked up. The schematic system that they came up with Co 1 it's elegant, and it's absolutely something like that should be implemented in Co 3. Obviously, at the moment, there's just these little pop-ups that come and say the engine's damaged, stuff like that. It also doesn't seem like there's a lot of different kinds of criticals that are on vehicles right now, generally speaking. So it remains to be seen what they're going to do with this. But I would something akin to the system on the left would be much, much easier to see. I mean, it is iconic because it looks like an engineering schematic, kind of like an old school one. But the key with this is it needs to be quickly and easily understandable under stress. If I'm looking at a symbol and I can't tell what this symbol does at a glance, and there's like 4 or 5 symbols, forget about it. It needs to be, that's right, it needs to be clean, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be elegant. And the Koan system does that in spades. It's just obvious. And it's easier, it's also easier for viewers. This is something that I'm not sure how much Relic is focusing on, but like the Twitch streaming thing, now that we're not in 2006 or 2013, is enormous. And the potential for Relic to capitalize on the fact that the public can watch the game without knowing anything about it means that things like this are going to be even more important now, because someone in the crowd's not going to understand what any of this garbage means, even if the players do. But if the crowd sees something like this and they see a red indicator on a gun or a yellow indicator on the back of a tank, it's more consumable for everyone. So those kinds of things need to be taken into account, as well as the player base. So the wounded vehicle thing's up for debate. Who the hell knows what they're going to do? Bullet bounce and armor types. Everyone should know at this point that side armor is a thing. And that's fantastic. Side armor, it makes perfect sense that you would have different values for front, side, and rear. We're going to be looking at, how are they going to set up weapon, if a main gun hits a vehicle, does it matter that it's at an angle relative to the round coming in? Or is it all just stats? There are a lot of things like that that are going to matter in the future. In this specific part of the article, we're talking about not just how it statistically works, but how it feels. In this case, I wrote, seeing the physical round bounce off the tank really made you feel the armor. In KO2, the rounds do not bounce off the vehicles. This is what an armor pen looks like. This is what a deflection looks like. They almost look the same. In KO1, this is a pen and this is a bounce. Not only is it like kinesthetically more satisfying to watch rounds bounce off if you're the King Tiger player, but it's also easier to understand. It's easier to identify exactly what's going on when things are moving really fast. Not just for the players, but for the random viewers as well. That's going to be important. Don't think they'll do armor angling orange. Yeah, they might not, man. I mean, it would be sick. I am speculating on that because we're still playing with the game and it's very hard to test and know what all the guts of the game look like. But again, we are sitting on the highest amount of leverage we're ever going to have, except for the people who played earlier. Like this is it. So that's all this stuff. The commanders. We've seen a lot of good choice-related sort of information coming out of Relic in relation to the game. When you're on the campaign map, for example, there are a lot of choices you need to make with your different units you've got. When you're vetting, they have like a choice system in the American faction for what you want to pick for Vet 1. We haven't really seen formal, and again, this is what we care about, multiplayer commanders or whatever they're going to call this. And the key here is something that, because the commander system is so fundamental to this game, or again, whatever they're going to call it, the focus needs to be on choice. And like, again, this was something posted ages ago when Code 2 came out, and it's this linear, you just unlock stuff. There's so much, like, if you have one commander and it is designed like Code 2 is, things unlock in sequence. The only complexity there that can be accounted for is timing of unlocks, okay? But if you took the same commander and split them up, I'm going to look at the right here, into sections where you need to make a choice, not just in the beginning which one to pick, but you can pick as you go. That opens up like a 10x improvement over the number of potential choices. So we're we're looking at that and we're not sure exactly what they're going to do. Exclusive unit choices between A and B. Well, we think, but this is the thing is, like, even if we're data mining and we're playing the skirmishes, the fact that it's not finalized means that if we want something as high a quality as possible and interesting as possible to be made, we need to look at the fact that they make choices relevant here. So if they're customizing battle groups, for example, like you're saying, that could be awesome. But again, we're skirmishing against AI. There's no multiplayer, so we'll see what happens here. Number and quality commanders. I almost don't want to go over this because this would be as long as everything else we're going to go over. You know, commander overlap, the cost of things. I went on and on with this, and we're just going to hope to see what Relic and Sega does here, because it'll all be pure speculation on what things will cost or how they'll do cost for things. So we'll just pass over that one. The 88's back. Need I say more? That's fucking awesome. Moving on. Maps. The maps that we've seen so far are in I'm focusing on skirmish mode because in campaign you can go nuts. You can do a ton of different things. These are the three that I've played, and I basically went into the skirmish mode, jumped in, checked the map, left, jumped in. Like, I went in and out of the skirmish mode. I lost track how many times to see what they had. I saw these three pop up. I didn't see any others. And as interesting as these are, and I'm not going to start to tell them they should design the map better because, again, we're in alpha, but, like, they've got the right kinds of points and actually really something close to this where we're trying to determine how to make it easy to look at the map and determine what's going on. You're looking at points here. We have muni, fuel, and manpower, but now we have different kinds of munis, different kinds of fuels. So they have these little up arrows here, right? One up arrow tells you it's a plus 10. Two up arrows tells you it's a plus 16. They're trying to remove the actual numbers from the TAC map. I think that's the right path to go. You want to try to make it... They're trying to make this like a slicker interface, and you can tell by the minimalist UI that they went with. But we'll get back to that at some point. Again, map lists. We haven't seen any of that. This is all about what they should do in ladder. We don't have a ladder. The tactical map. I am going to talk about this because they haven't actually released the TAC map yet. The Code 2 TAC map does some things right. For example, telling which units are in combat, which units are suppressed, which units are retreating. You have these iconographies that tell you what's happening kind of at a glance. That's good. What isn't good is, as you can see in this area here, the icons are way too big. They're overlapping each other in a way that makes it almost impossible to understand what's going on in that specific area if you're trying to know what units are there without jumping back into the game. And again, this is going to come down to, is it useful for players? I know a lot of people in Code 2 use the TAC map, so it must be useful to some degree, but is it also visually understandable for viewers? The Code 1 map, if you had this top view, with iconography used in the Code 2 TAC map, you'd have something that's a lot more useful for, I think, players and viewers. So the big takeaway there is the icon size, but also, let's be honest, the Code 1 TAC map art just looks so much better. The outlines of these buildings being embossed on the art, a lot clearer detail. This is like this two-dimension, it's like someone painted it almost. So the artwork also on the TAC map is a lot more understandable. So another thing we can hope for there. Terrain elevation. I think we all know that this is something that they're focusing on in a huge way. Like, they're trying to actually solve this. If we look at, you know, the elevation that we've seen, I did not throw any of those in here yet. The elevation that we've seen, they're talking about verticality, essentially, in Code 3. That is huge for the map makers and for everybody playing. Why does Relic call it verticality instead of elevation? I don't know. They call it verticality. I'll call it whatever they want if it works. In Co 1 it worked, but it was very wonky. We would have, main guns would fire at a hill, and they would like travel up the base of the hill. It looked strange. Co 2, it didn't work at all in any situation. It was hot garbage, which made any competitive map have to be perfectly flat. There's a lot of images, and you can actually test this out to some degree, how the elevation's working, and it's working much, much better. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But the fact that this is a focus, they're in Italy, there are mountains and hills everywhere, so they're going to have to focus on that, and they are. So that is going to make a giant difference. We're looking at elevation coming back, not just to the campaigns, but the latter maps are going to have so much more potential complexity with a combination of elevation and the resource system being corrected from what we have in Code 2. That I can't stress that enough. Community, we don't know. So I'm just going to skip all... Actually, I'm not going to skip over all this. Some of this is important, like the UI design. For example, if you're in Company Heroes 2 and you want to find out information about a player, you can't just like flip a card over and see. There's so many things wrong with the Code 2 interface that makes it hard to understand what's going on if you're looking at other players. Even looking at your own player, it's a mess. But again, this is something they're starting fresh with, so I'm not going to hammer that too hard. We're hopefully going to look at something that is better than Code 1. Even though Code 1 was kind of slick, it didn't show that much. And Code 2, which is hot garbage, and I'm not going to beat around the bush about that. The Code 2 menu system is hot garbage. But that's okay. It's okay. Oh boy, faction design. So, I've looked at the factions. The problem is I've looked at the factions. Fuck it. So, the Code 3 factions, American and Brit, I haven't loaded up the Austere or the Wehrmacht. I saw AE had done that on stream, or on his YouTube. I need to try to do that and take a look. But there are a couple of important pieces to take away from this. Traditionally, the British faction is basically set up so that they are a slow defensive faction, and they have emplacements, and then the Americans are kind of faster. But guess what I haven't seen? I have not seen emplacements. I've seen little MG bunkers you can put up, and the fact that when Relic presented Code 3 for the first time on stream, they were talking about breaching, and the fact that players were complaining that buildings would slow combat down, and they're trying to make, and I wish I had quoted them here, but they're trying to set this up so that the game can be more aggressive. They were explicit in this desire, and it shows. And that's so important. I can't stress enough how important that is. So we're looking at things like breaching to make it so that buildings aren't these monolithic, pieces of sludge that slow the entire game down. We're also looking at either... well, at a minimum, far, far less generic emplacements. Like doctrinal stuff, I'm not going to get into that too much, but what we're seeing early tells you where they are feeling they want to go. And so, like the faction design, do they have a weapon support? When do things tech up? Blah, blah, blah. You start with all your buildings when you jump into skirmish. All right? So trying to figure out what the factions are actually going to look like from a design perspective it's not that easy to do, but you can look at what they're providing us up front, and it looks good. It looks good, which is great. So, I'm actually going to quote this DevM quote right here because I think it's worth repeating. Even though the Code 2 does do some things good, it's worth repeating this from DevM. Faction design in Company Heroes 1 was in many ways superior to Company Heroes 2. Many of the basic tools were already there without the need for a commander, and the original factions played out in interesting ways due to the high costs associated with any major teching decision. What Code 2 factions have going for it is a more noob-friendly approach. I believe a compromise can be reached between the two for the next iteration. There was always a more noticeable distinction in game phases in Co-1, where good infantry players could finish the game on that alone without even letting the opponent get a single vehicle out. Co-2 suffered through the patches from heavy, light vehicle play that silenced any good infantry play as early as sometimes 4 minutes into the game. I believe that is one of Co-2's flaws, and that has been bandaged and somewhat fixed for now, but it should be looked at carefully in the future. And the Company Heroes 3 setup right now, again, it's very hard to look at the factions when you start with almost all the buildings and know when things are going to happen, but everything DevM just said is 100% correct. Being able to set this up for distinct phases would be huge. I also like clown cars are more or less common. Yeah, jibber jabber. Clown cars are... There are like ways to kind of mitigate how dumb they are, but they're fucking they're clown cars are awful. Clown cars cause so many problems for everybody. It's not just the fact that it's dumb and it breaks a bunch of the fundamental mechanics, which it does, but when new players come into the game and they're not given a chance to do anything because light vehicles are so overpowering, and anyone who kind of knows what they're doing are just gonna bop this new player and just it's awful. So, in any case, moving on to mines. Landmines, there are a bunch of things actually in Code 2 that I thought was interesting about the landmines where they had, and I'm sure Relic's going to do some of this. I mean, maybe not, but and I suppose they did this in Code 1. Things like teller mines, where there are specialized mines for specialized occasions. Right now, we're looking at regular mines for the most part, and that's okay. The one thing that is missing from Code 3 right now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but units do not get suppressed when they walk through mines. They get hit by the mine kills some people, they keep moving. That's a problem. The Company Heroes 3 landmines have to suppress. It's not enough that they kill units even if they kill whole squads, because landmines in Co 1 specifically are used as a blob control tool. And I don't mean as killing. I'm talking specifically about if you have, if you're trying to protect your flank, your opponent can walk through a minefield if they have enough units and not really care. Especially in Code 2, you only kill a couple of units. But we're looking at things like suppression because that actually can protect your flank, because speed's more important than casualties when you're in an assault. Casualties over time is different. Casualties in an assault's speed in an assault's the most important thing. And if you're flanking, surprise is the most important. And landmines give people another tool to control, not just flanking, but it's about blobs. Blob control Company Heroes 2 entirely relies on machine guns and artillery. Mines don't really control blobs. You can make a case for the Wehrmacht, minefields that they lay, but yeah, RAS Rachel, I think you're right about that. So we need to see suppression with minefields, certainly. And actually, I want to go back to factions real quick, mentioning the fact that another good thing is that they gave all the basic factions, the British and the Americans, they gave all the basic tools. They gave them all the basic tools. They have mortars, they have machine guns. They come in at different times and at different timings, and you're going to make different choices of how to get what you want. But the fact that they gave them the basic tools is also very important. Campaign. Someone asked me earlier, do you like the campaign? Or no, I've been getting messages on Steam. Do I like the campaign, the idea of the campaign they have? Yes. Yes. Combining Total War with the battle system that Company Heroes came up with is a great idea. And it might not be a coincidence that, or it might be very helpful, I should say, to Relic, that Sega also owns Creative Assembly, who works on the Total War franchise. And it would be great, and this might be happening behind the scenes, who knows, if they can talk to each other and they could help them maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that past Total War games have gone through to make the co-experience better. It's a good idea to have a campaign where you can move around like that, and I'm sure everyone's played it at this point, but the only other thing that would be nice is stuff like co-op campaigns. If you had co-op campaigns like that where people can play together, that would be a big boon for new people coming in, because they like that kind of stuff. This is basically discussing how I'm not worried about the campaigns being bad. Like, all this up here is me concerned with what's going to happen. I was never worried about them making a good campaign. Relic is famously good at making good campaigns, even if some of the Co 2 ones were garbage. Relic makes damn good campaigns, and the idea of having a Total War co-hybrid is fine. It'll be great. So that is, I'm short summarizing a lot of this, but that's the first article, and most of it, we can't go over everything because we just don't have a lot of stuff here. So we're going to move on to the second article real quick. There's more small items here. I'm talking about things like balance. Skip it. Doesn't matter right now. The mechanics and the structure of the game matters far more. I have not seen Abandon at all. And Abandon is one of those things that cannot be in ladder. Like, it's too broken unless they change it and someone shows how it'll actually work. Is it, Jimmer? I have not seen Abandon in Co 3 yet. But let's pretend I have. It's very easy for it to be in things like Campaign. And it almost... Campaign's the place where you're supposed to play with all this weirdness. Okay? Campaign is the place to go crazy. Campaign's the place to see skill planes and Abandon and main gun crits. All that nonsense that has no place in ladder, again, which most of us care about. It's actually fine if it's in the campaign because it's fun and it's, But I know it's still a case in Co 2. In Co 3, I have not seen it. Did I say Co 2? I've had a few drinks. Doesn't matter. So that's Abandon. Actually, this has I reiterated my mine issue because it had still not been fixed at the time, and I still think it's still not. This is a classic example showing a flanking assault from players in Co 1, and you can see this blob coming in on an AT gun who's defenseless, hits a mine, and some of them actually get not just yellow suppressed, but red suppressed. One of the pile squads does. They get pinned from the mine, and some get suppressed, and it depends on how close you are to the mine and probably how you're blobbed up, and who the hell knows. These kinds of tools need to operate like that. Like the generic landmine has to operate like this. It's a fundamental part of the game. And they can add that. I'm not worried about that being an issue. Click to win abilities. Another encouraging thing from the factions and actually the campaign is I know there's a way to unlock skill planes on one of the commander setups, but in fact, all the skills I've seen and been able to use are you have to tell the plane where to go. It gives you an arc, and you can kind of tell that arc where to be, and you send the plane in, and it's about timing. It's about placement. It's about using the right thing in the right situation, and I haven't seen skill planes. That's great. It's great. And skill planes is another one of those things that you can put in campaign. It's okay. It's okay to be in campaign. So that's that. Veto maps, gonna skip it. Gifts, haven't even gotten there yet. Multiplayer colors, clans, win conditions, skip. Music. Well, the menu music's good. It's hard to beat. The vanilla, to me, and this is mostly rose-colored glasses, perhaps, but the Co 1 soundtrack is so good. Oddly, I do like it's just some like tension music and the skirmishes. We haven't heard too much of it, to be honest. But this stuff's hard to beat. Oh, they got rid of my Co 2. I had a Co 2 theme here. We'll leave that running in the background. And also the sound effects. I'm so pleased. I know it's not done, and I know there's a lot of sound effects that like the machine guns right now sound the same. There's a lot of stuff that's incomplete, but the sound effects that are new, the sound effects with tanks, the sound effects with explosions, the artillery, it sounds better than both games. It should, and it does, and I can't say enough good things about the sound effects so far. I think the Co 3 sound effects are better than both the new stuff that sounds like it's a bit polished. Dude, it's good, and I'm so excited for that, because part of the viewing experience is like you could make it sound like, you know, Saving Private Ryan taking the beach, like that level sound effects. And you could make it that Brad Pitt movie, I can't remember right now, Fury, with the tanks. Like, there's no reason you can't do that. And the sound effects sound really good. So props to Relic for that. That could have been... There's so many areas where I was concerned that they would trip over themselves. And I didn't have any, you know... Like, with zero evidence, basically, except for some historical stuff. But they made a lot of good historical stuff. The crux of it is the sound effects are fucking awesome. And if they just keep going with what they have more, they're going to be fine. Now, can you do some of this in Co 3?
Heavy Panzer commissioned to the front. Com system in order. Confirm Heavy Panzer is weapons free. Direct hit. Enemy is reloading. Give them a shot, Doctor. A tiger. She drinks fuel like it's beer. Heavy Panzer reporting effective enemy fire.
Right, the Co 1 radio effects with things that are off map, and that guy, the voice actor, is hard to beat. The Co 1 or the Co 3 voice actors actually do sound pretty darn good. But I was in this part of the article, I'm talking about how the speech volume specifically is higher volumetrically than it is in Co 2. Like, it's just turned up more. You can hear it easier. And I'm telling them to, and again, YouTube has turned off my Co 2 stuff, but they want to make it distinct, memorable, and recognizable. We love it. We fucking love it. And showcase it. Turn it up. The Co 1 sound effects, like if you switch between them, the Co 1 voiceovers are louder. They just are. And it makes it easier to appreciate them. So some of the Co 2 stuff was better than Co 1. Doesn't matter. The Co 3 sound effects are dank. And the voice acting sounds pretty good, but we're looking for like that loud, memorable stuff. So we'll see what they do there. True Sight supposedly is upgraded, I heard. I don't know if anyone has any evidence to back up the fact that it's upgraded. I'm assuming that when units are on elevation, maybe you can't see them, and that adds like this stacking effect to True Sight, which would be great. That's a great idea. It's almost like StarCraft. If you're on the low ground, you can't see units on the high ground, something like that. Anything that's True Sight related and improved is welcome, because True Sight's great. That's one thing that Co 2 did indisputably better than Co 1. It's not debatable. It is better in every measurable way. So props to the True Sight. Okay, snipers. This is more important. Okay. The Co 1 snipers could cloak and move everywhere, which was kind of universally seen as too OP. A lot of players in the Co 1 days, everyone was making snipers. You get 2-3 of them, it's just kind of over. So that element was corrected in Co 2 in a very good way, where units sit in cover to be cloaked. Whether it's a crater, yellow cover, green cover, doesn't matter. That is an objective improvement on the camouflage cloaking system. However, in Co 2, when a sniper fires, it sounds like every other unit on the map, and you can't see where it came from without clicking a UI element, which is going to take away from your micro and your APM. And if they had just taken the Co 1 sniper, where the Co 1 sniper, when it fires, you see a streak coming from it, so you can quickly ID its origin. And the shot that comes from a sniper is unique and loud and distinct from everything else on the map. If they combine those, they'd have perfect snipers. That's exactly what they did. The Code 3 snipers they're perfect, and they're perfect for one other reason. The Code 2 snipers, if you tell it to shoot a target, sits there, and he waits, and he opens a book, and he's completely irresponsive. The Code 2 snipers, you tell it to do something, and they do it. And that's exactly how it should be, and here's why. In all RTSs that have ever existed, there is a spectrum. On this spectrum are units that are weak and fast, and slow and heavy. The slow heavy units tend to have a lot of firepower. They tend to be heavily armored, but they're glacially slow as you approach one end of that spectrum. As you approach the other end of that spectrum, you have things that are nimble, you have things that have little or no armor, and things that are fast and responsive. Snipers are way over here. They're on this side of the spectrum. It's true they one-hit kill, but they're so goddamn fragile. And because of the Code 2 system where they're cloaked, you have to be very careful about your selection of movement. It is excellent that they're responsive. The Code 3 snipers have to be responsive, and they are. What I'm getting at after all this rant is the fact that they did them right. They fucking nailed it. The Code 3, I started playing around with them, and I was like, oh, yes, thank you, God. This makes them viable and counterable. It's not only that the snipers are set up in such a way that all these elements work together, but it's also the fact that the faction design that they set up, both factions have an early Jeep-like, or actually a Jeep in the Americans' case, vehicle. For this first phase, as Devin correctly pointed out earlier in that quote, this first phase of the game, where countering snipers for different factions in Code 2 is they either don't have it, or you have to go to clown cars, or there are a lot of these pigeonholing decisions that happen. Because they've given the factions the tool set they need, you as the player get to make the choice. The choice will be driven by the map. It'll be driven by what the opposing units are. It might be driven by how they're using the sniper to some extent, but the fact remains is that the snipers were done. They're perfect. Like, you probably need to tweak how they work, some of the little pieces of how they move around and shit, but like the structure, and again, that's all that matters right now. The balance doesn't matter. There are a lot of little things that don't, the art doesn't matter. It doesn't matter almost at all. The snipers work great. I enumerate all the points I just made here. You can see in the Code 1, the sniper sits here, he fires, there's a streak, you can ID its location, you don't need to fuck around with the UI. You shouldn't have to. Here's Code 2, sorry. The snipers fire, not only can you not hear them, but you can't really see where the hell they came from. So, we're looking at excellent sniper design in Code 3. Unit identification. I'm just going to read this first sentence. The complexity of any Company of Heroes game demands immediate feedback that can be consumed at a glance. That is as true as it gets. That's true for all RTSs, especially for Company of Heroes. And they basically have that because they have the unit icons. The unit icons are outstanding. They have these small indicators here that tell you what's happening to the unit to some degree. There is a problem, though. And I haven't actually played around with this enough to get anywhere specific, but it doesn't look like this is in Code 3 at this point. When unit in Company of Heroes obtains weapons, it is not always clear what weapons the unit has. There'll be a symbol that's supposed to help, but because certain units can have groups and they can have a mix of weaponry, you don't always know what you actually have. Not only you, your opponent, I guess it doesn't matter too much, but it also does. The point I'm driving at here is when you select a unit in Code 2, this is what you get. In Code 1, you have an indicator of exactly what weapons they're using. Not exactly, but you have an idea of what they're using. I think there's a way to incorporate something better than both of these into Code 3 so that units it's understood fundamentally what the units are carrying for weapons. Maybe not the baseline weapons, but certainly the light weapons that can be picked up. Bazookas, LMGs, G43s, Panzerschrecks, the list goes on forever. Those things matter. That matters more than people might think. And again, it also matters for viewers. If viewers don't know what they're looking at, it's an additional problem. This is some more iconography stuff. They really haven't gotten anywhere with this, but I'll just read this last sentence here. It says, there will be so much data that has to be displayed simultaneously, and keeping it all organized and quickly understandable will be important to everyone. I didn't say the player here. I said everyone. That includes viewers who don't know what they're looking at. I'm actually going to address this side note because this hasn't been talked about enough, and that is the units, generally speaking. This is outside of the game, so consider you're in the menus, you're dicking around. You want to find something out about a faction and how it works, how it operates, and what the actual stats are, not stats that are outdated because we don't have updated stats from a new patch or something. The actual stats, and maybe a description. We don't have any of that in any Co game, and there's really no reason for it. Company Heroes 3, there really needs to be some kind of a section that has an out-of-game, like in the main menus, not on a website somewhere, in the game, stat breakdown for everything. Everything. I'm talking not just the units, the buildings too. And that, I can't say too much about that because just put all the stats on there. Maybe make it part of like the tech tree that you can look at and analyze. Jibber Jabber, is Co 3 damage system well understandable like Co 2? Because Co 1 was a mess. Dude, I honestly don't know. The Co 1 system was more flexible, but it was a mess. And the Co 2 system might be more understandable, but it's still... I have no idea. Because of the reused elements, there's clearly some reused elements in Co 3 from Co 1 and 2. I suspect it's built on the Co 2 system. I don't know that. I hope it's improved. I hope it's something that makes Co 1 and Co 2 obsolete, which it should be. But I don't know. Moving on, the casual. So this, I hammer a lot on the multiplayer, and I play casual games with friends. Especially back in the day, we used to play a ton. And the casual base for this game is huge. And in order for us to help Relic when we're giving feedback for this game, we need to consider the fact that they're trying to get as many people playing the game simultaneously as humanly possible. That includes people that are casual. And for us, if the ladder system and the factions and the menus and the whole game is set up efficiently, there should be mechanisms by which you can trickle casual players into the competitive environment. A lot of people get brought in that way, and Relic being able to make a good campaign and, understandable UI elements is so important. And I'm going to pause a minute and also give Relic a fucking 10 out of 10 for the pause system they implemented. The tactical pause system they plugged in, that might be the most important thing that they came up with in the entirety of, for casual players, definitely, that's the most important thing they came up with. It's not debatable. This new campaign, it's like Total War. That doesn't actually matter relative to the tactical pause, because you can make a good campaign like 13 different ways. The casual pause won't be used by us. Almost none of us will use it. So why is it important? It's important because regular people, and I want to find this clip, it is critical that people see this. Regular people who have no idea what they're looking at or playing can understand this game relatively quickly. and in a way that can be paced out. It's almost like the old XCOM games, well, even the new XCOM games, where it turns this into a turn-based game, and it's much easier to understand because KO's so goddamn chaotic sometimes. There's a streamer called Day9. I don't know if anyone knows it. He's an RTS fanatic. If you've followed him or the StarCraft scene for decades, you know who he is. And he's a smart guy who really understands how RTSs work, generally speaking. He was playing KO 3 on the day it was released for alpha, and he didn't understand the game at all. I'm going to preface this. He's trying to play, he's clunky, he's fucking up, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Started using the tactical pause. And after he had used the tactical pause a few times, he said this.
I'm going to do another one of these. Oh, this is so grandy dandy. Dude, the tactical pause is so nice for this kind of game. It's like so nice. I'm incredibly excited for this to come out multiplayer now that I actually get the game so much better.
Okay, that's exactly what you want to hear. It's exactly what the fuck you want to hear. And there's, I don't know of another way to do it. Like, can you make the campaign slower? Could you make it like you don't want to do that? The tactical pause is absolutely genius. He's a guy playing the campaign. He's dicking around. He's excited about multiplayer now. Whether it's casual or ladder, that's all you want to hear. That's all we want to hear. So, it's huge. And also the campaign's good. That's part of the casual experience. I talk about maps here too, blah, blah. Campaigns have to be good. It'll be good. The campaign's going to be great. The Africa campaign's going to make everyone lose their shit. It's going to be awesome. You're going to be, Rommel charging across the desert with German tanks in 42, 43. It's going to be sick. So, outstanding. Game engine. I don't know. I can't corroborate if this is exactly right, though. But this guy claimed to be... I'm just going to jump to this YouTube real quick. He claims to be... I think this was an AE clip. Yeah, AE just talking about the game. And this guy chimed in. He said, I was the supervising animator on the first game, KO 1. And we had nothing to reference at that time. We made this game up with pure creativity as fans. That's been corroborated by anyone who worked on KO 1. And by what we wish we could have in a game as RTS fans. KO 2, and not to knock it, but it was just a rebranded version of the first. Much of the art was reused, true, and textures, true, were updated, and most of the animation we did on the first was reused. Yeah, that's not really a disputable fact at this point. And my concern going into KO 3 was that we would get more of that. The Essence engine, this is 1.0 for KO 1, 3.0, and this was my speculation on a new Essence engine. I'm assuming that to some degree this is a new engine. It has to be because there's things like breaching. And in this part of the discussion I'm talking about, this gets kind of deep here, but this talks about StarCraft and how it was designed under the Warcraft 2 engine. And it was basically, they started over with a new engine, and StarCraft 1 was born out of that environment. Part of me hoped that this would be a brand new engine, and everything would be amazing, because building on old engines have pros and cons, although building on new engines has pros and cons, like how long it takes to operate them and get them, or how long it takes to develop them and get them operational. So we're working with what it looks like Essence engine, maybe 5.0, and it looks good, but it needs a lot of polish. So fair enough. The esports. I rant about this. I've got a nice hopeful image here from K-Pen looking at what the future could be. This is what we're aiming for. Or I'm not gonna lie, everyone in this room should be aiming for this to some degree. This is photoshopped, obviously. We want to get the competitive scene as active as humanly possible, assuming the game's good enough. And with all of the elements that we've seen foundationally, it is encouraging. The minimalist UI is something I have not talked about enough. The idea that the screen's taken up by a lot of garbage, which I think AE pointed out ages ago. A lot of people have talked about this too in the past. It's true, and this new system is much better from a being able to see the screen, like all the shit behind the UI. It's just better. Minimalist UI is good. I'm really hoping that Relic allows us to move these around more than they do now. You can take the unit icons and move them to the right. They overlap a little bit. I think a lot of people know this at this point. But they should almost allow these elements to be moved around, have a couple of like standard settings so you can try different settings and it moves stuff. And then they should let the players move them anywhere. That would be giving players choices is hugely important. Waterflies, do you like mini-map rotating with how it rotates? No, it's fine. The Code 3 map rotation's a bit broken right now. Like it's stuttering. You have to hold down backspace to get it back to the original orientation. I think that's what you're talking about. If that's the case, that would be what I would have to say about that. So the UI is better, all that stuff, but we're trying to make this real as much as possible. I talk about the past, looking at, again, we haven't seen any of this shit, so it's almost stupid to talk about it, but this is, and the game's not at launch right now. I'm actually going to quote this right here because this is maybe fundamentally the most important part. The goal for Relic is to asymptotically approach this standard. This is this Jesus standard I was talking about earlier in the article for Company of Heroes 3. You want to have this condition at launch. I lost count of how many players permanently left the Code 2 community when they saw its launch state. But for now, or for a new Code game, in some cases, there are clear signs of what should be changed in order to improve the experience for everyone. Yeah, we're in alpha, so it's not going to be. You mean how the Code 1, Code 2 map or stack, Code 3 mini map rotates with the camera? Oh, that should be a toggleable setting, jibber jabber. That should be something that the player chooses. A lot of this stuff people focus on, I want this and I want that, and the reality is you should give the players as much lateral movement to set up their experience as humanly possible from an interactive perspective. Not the fundamentals of the game, but do you want your tech map here or there? Do you want it to rotate? What do you want your buttons to be labeled as? The player should be able to pick all that shit, and you should give them a best starting point as you can. That's like comfortable, generally speaking. So yeah. The RNG dilemma. Oh, Jesus. I don't know if I want to talk about this either because we're early enough where it's almost, I don't know. Okay, so should snipers hit each other when they fire 100% of the time? Yes, they should. Randomly missing is totally unforgivable if that's still a thing. I know this is a very old Co-1 shot, but it's relevant. If a pack or an AT gun is at near point blank range and a tank's at near death, should it connect with that tank? If the tank isn't doing anything crazy, or there's no abilities active, no smoke, all that shit, should it connect? I think yes. The key to RNG in Company Heroes 3 is going to be a balance. I went at great lengths to make it clear that removing RNG from Co would be a giant mistake. And even in games like StarCraft 1 have some RNG, Co has a lot more, but the goal here is to remove as much unreasonable, over-impactful, low-chance randomness as possible. RNG, for example, is like an elevation. RNG is things like scarabs, whether or not they detonate. I watch a lot of StarCraft 1 competitive. StarCraft absolutely has RNG. There's also spawning points. So if you have 4-player maps, a lot of those are competitive for 1v1. Where you spawn makes a giant difference. The base that you spawn in. There's plenty of RNG in StarCraft 1. You have things like... yeah, it goes on and on. In any case, Company of Heroes has a lot more RNG than StarCraft does. And it's actually okay if some of it's curtailed. Things like... if you're at point blank with an AT gun and there's nothing that would interfere with it under normal conditions, like this graphic you're seeing here, this AT gun in this case is well under its 50% range, and it misses. If you watch the rest of the clip, the tank kills the AT gun, gets away, and the guy with the tank wins the game. That's not surprising. These kinds of things, if they want this game to be good, they need to be very careful about what they do. I'm going to give an example here. Actually, I gave this example here. A guy named Huck, who used to play with the Reborn guys a lot. He was in Reborn back in the day. He's one of the best StarCraft 2 players in the country. I'm in the United States right now. If he's playing a game for $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 for the winner, okay? And you get to something like Game 5, and you have a situation like this, where in this example, the AT player identifies the fact that T-3485 is weak and vulnerable, and the other guy's not microing his tank. And the AT gun player correctly identifies this, correctly moves the AT gun into position, correctly sets it up, and fires at close range to maximize his chances of accuracy, and it misses. You're telling the player as the developer, you did everything right, but fuck you. Okay? This happens an unacceptable number of times, and everyone here who's played on ladder knows exactly what that feels like. And I don't mean when the player makes the mistake, but they feel like they got screwed over, right? Because that's a real thing, like internal bias. I'm talking about things that are real from an objective, not a subjective stance. This graphic illustrates my point beautifully. And you can't have a competitive environment where this is okay. You also are going to drive players away if this is okay. Players that don't know anything about this game, but do everything right in the right order as you instruct them through the campaign and through tutorials, and then you fuck them over because of the way some of this over-impactful, low-chance randomness is, that will stymie this game in ways that are not okay. So I'm actually glad we talked about this because it's super fucking important that Relic looks at this and thinks about ways to mitigate this stuff. So if players do the right things in the right orders, they get the payoff. You're supposed to get this AT gun player is supposed to get the satisfaction of destroying that tank because he did everything right. The other player did everything wrong, and the guy who did everything wrong ends up winning this game. That's not going to happen for high stakes. People are not going to play for $100,000 if that's part of the game. They won't. And I went through Huck. I basically asked him if this situation, that AT gun situation, I explained it to him. And I'm like, what do you think about that? And he said, for argument's sake, I think chancing games is good. But obviously, to the degree they have it is bad. Your example being good, the AT gun there. There are not a lot of guys that have as much experience in competitive gaming as guys like the StarCraft 1 and 2 environment. So that's kind of important to highlight there. I also go into potential solutions. How would you solve the RNG dilemma? There's probably 100 ways to do this. I almost don't want to go over them because we're going to be here all goddamn day. But the crux of this is if it stays the way it is with some of the unreasonable low chance RNG, it's a problem. So, and again, someone just said that it's not the same. It doesn't function as poker. It's more like roulette. That's true And that's okay in a casual environment. It's okay if you're in a campaign and things are like that. It's okay that you're playing a casual game with your buddies. It's okay if you're in a co-op campaign. It's okay if it's a mod. That's fine. I've heard people talk about this, and they're talking about the ladder, and they're like, well, that's okay. But I'm like, you don't understand. This is the ladder. This is a competitive environment. We're playing for money. And that stuff breaks that. It's a AE said this. I'm going to quote him. It's a game-breaking experience. So please, Relic, if you're watching or if you ever hear this, please look very closely at the unreasonable, over-impactful RNG. Getting down here. This is just the conclusion. I'm trying to end it on a high note. You know, Relic cares. This was a nice video they did making a tank out of cake. And I'll just requote this part because it's important. An astounding amount of potential. That's what Company of Heroes 3 has. It has the potential to be one of the greatest RTS games of all time. It has the potential to make Co-1 look quaint and Co-2 look outdated. It has the potential to create an entirely new esport with fans in the hundreds of thousands. The casters are standing by, the players are chomping at the bit, and all the features experience of the past can add up to be something to astonish the RTS world. Thanks, blah, blah, blah. I think that all is still essentially true. They need to look at this seriously. And I'm not Evil Tribble. I'm not saying do features just for esports. A lot of people look at this and they think about it's this or it's that. They should do this one thing or they should do this other thing, and they're not compatible somehow. It's not true. Do both. Do it all. Relic Entertainment's backed by Sega. You understand? They make billions of dollars every year. Relic's making Age of Empires 4. Age of Empires, one of the most important RTS franchises ever to exist. They're making Company of Heroes 3, the highest rated RTS franchise ever to exist. Don't tell me they should do one or the other. People need to stop talking about that. That's nonsense. Don't do esports. Well, this campaign doesn't make sense. Do both. If people look at things like Company of Heroes Online, all this customization, and then they look at all the different campaigns they've done, they look at this Total War thing, and they look at multiplayer, then they look at ladders, they look at esports, and they're saying some people say, oh, you should only do one or the other. You should focus on this. No, do it all. Relic is in a position where they can do it all, which hasn't happened since 2005. You understand? When Code 2 came out, they didn't have the opportunity to actually take their time and do it right. That is widely known. THQ was dying. They had to release a game, so we got what we got. And Relic hasn't been able to sit down and take their time since 2005. 16 fucking years ago. Actually, it's more like 04. So when you guys are talking to people and people are saying, well, they need to do this more than the other thing, shut that down immediately. Because part of this is that Relic is now in a position where they've released this game, the alpha, the pre-alpha, and they're going to be getting feedback from everybody. Okay? The most important tool that Relic has at this point is their bullshit filter. Okay? They're going to be getting feedback from tens of thousands of people, many of whom have either never played Code 2 or never played Code 1. And in some cases, never played Company Heroes Online. And maybe they haven't even played the Code 3 Alpha. So, because their filters, the most important thing protecting them, when you see people talking about things like, oh, we need to look at the art design right now. The art's important right now. You need to make these tanks look good in the next patch. That needs to be shut off because it doesn't matter. The things that matter are the structural components of the game. Because if they're done wrong right now, it doesn't matter how good it looks. It's going to suck. If they don't have the right tools in for ladder, campaign, the menus, all this stuff, if, Main gun crits are still a thing. Will they sell this? Yes, they will. It's not the goal. We're not trying to get this game to like, oh, it's 80% as good as it could be, or 70% as good as it could be, right? It'd be very easy for Relic or for the community to get the game kind of where Code 2 is, where it's like, well, it's okay. It's good enough for us. It's good enough for the core players. That thinking is cancer to this endeavor. This has to be we want to make this a 100% as good as we possibly can experience. Not only will we benefit from that, but Relic will benefit hugely from that. Because you bet your ass that at Relic right now, they're looking at AoE 4 and Code 3 as extremely important titles in their history because these need to work for them. Dawn of War 3 was not good. They know that. Everyone knows that. We don't need to linger on that, but it's important that we help them do that. So focus on the structural stuff, please, when you're in forums, when you're talking, when you're any of that. The structural stuff matters more than everything. And getting this stuff right matters. And the game looks good. Like, the foundation looks good. And it'll be easy for people to steer them in the DOW. Dawn of War 3, goddammit. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know. And I'll show you this right now. This is the beginning of the article for the new Code 3. It's bones. It's not even bones. There's a lot of stuff. Let's see if I forgot anything in here. There's a lot of play mode potential they have here. Oh, I didn't mention Auto Vault. Did anyone else notice? Auto Vault is a thing. Units just vault on their own. That's amazing. That makes it feel so much better. So much better. Auto Vault is a layup for making it feel smooth. And this is what I'm trying to get at too, is that like Relic looks like they're doing the right things. The campaign foundations look awesome. A lot of the sound effect foundations look awesome. A lot of the faction design, even though it's not final, obviously, but what they put in and what they importantly didn't put in looks awesome, right? How snipers operate looks awesome. There's so many things that I'm like, holy shit, this could actually work. There's just this is gonna take forever to write correctly, but there's bugs like this. If I select these 3 vehicle types, the light vehicle doesn't show up. Right, there's pathing issues. I'm going to hammer that when I get into this because there's a couple ways to fix this from a foundational standpoint. I can't redirect my MGs, right? Some of the icons don't show up on dropped weapons, and they, tell them this, but don't focus on this. This stuff is you're peeing in the ocean of importance at that point. Jibber jabber. I like constructing buildings without engineers. Blah blah blah. Yeah, that might be a good thing. I'm not sure about that. Zero Co, yeah, where's the TAC map? They're working on it, but remember the TAC map needs to be... I don't remember which one it's in now. Gonna make everyone vomit as I scroll through this. Remember what's important about the TAC map. It's clarity, it's consistency, icon size, and making it like... It doesn't have to look like... I don't give a fuck if it looks like Co 1, but it needs to be as understandable as the best parts of both of these games. And if they've got extra tricks up their sleeve, put them in if they're great. 100%. And there's small things like, could... Like in Total War, if you right-click beyond a unit's movement, they'll queue up that movement for you. That should be a thing. Here's a good example of a reused... this spline right here is actually supposed to be moved over right here. I'm almost positive whoever made this map just missed that. This is tiny. I'm not criticizing them. But this is a reused element going all the way back to Co 1. Which is an example that tells me that we are sitting on an Essence Engine, revamp. I think everyone knows that by now. Full control of hotkeys, Zero Co. You're 100% right. But the ethos that I was talking about earlier, where like everything needs to be driven by the player, needs to be able to pick how they want to play the game from an interface standpoint. 100% true. Little shit like this, highlighting, conflicting. We can't queue up mines right now. I don't know if anyone knows that. I can't queue up mines. I tried. Units that retreat seem to go around objects instead of vaulting over them. Worth pointing out. Should retreating units be able to auto-vault? I think they probably should. So, you know, something to look at. There's some recon shit. Units hitting ground, right, blah, blah, blah. So I got 18 pages. I haven't really started yet. They did mention keys in the video. There you go. Yeah, I mentioned base building. That's the crux. I know I missed some stuff here. I'm not going to get everything while I have a couple of drinks and don't plan ahead too much to set this up. But Oh, actually, no, there is one more thing. This article is older than all of them. This was written in 2013. It's a world building article. This was before Code 2 came out. I didn't get to touch it. We had just seen previews, like Quinn Duffy had come on and shown stuff. Is there anything in here that's relevant? This one's all the graphics on this one are gone because I didn't upload them to Code. Oh, this is fun. This is a Co-1 map I designed, but I never released. Doesn't matter. This is all just garbage. Yeah, if you guys have questions, now's the time to ask me. I want to also let you all know that I am having a child, a boy. He's going to be born on December 4th, the doctors tell us. That is going to constrain my ability to actually work on this game as much as I'd like to. So, I'm drinking Kraken. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that. But the end of this year is going to be busy to the point where interacting and trying to push this process along, I just won't be here. I won't be here for probably a few months like until we get the baby on to getting up one night, once a night cycle. I just won't be here. But yeah, I'm super pumped. It's going to be awesome. But I'm just trying to let you know I might not be around when December approaches. And hopefully they'll give us World Builder tools. Some people were asking if I have World Builder yet. I don't have World Builder. I know a bunch of people have looked at the core files. They're trying to figure out what's happening. Nothing yet. So we'll hope that maybe Relic gives the tools to some people maybe early, or maybe they give them to everybody. That would be nice. But it also might be too early for that. I'm sure if their World Builder 2 tools are built heavily on the Code 1, Code 2 tools, they might be able to actually do that. But as it moves on, as time moves on, I'm sure they'll release that for us. So yeah, I'm super pumped to work on Code 3 maps because we have the tools now to... The structural stuff that they've plugged in here makes it so we can actually make good maps now. What do I mean by that? Code 2, there's some more potential, I think, in the Code 2 mapping environment, but I'm going to be brutally honest right now. The Code 2 system with capping points, the hybrid system, and the fact that we can't use elevation basically puts mappers in a position where we almost can't make anything unique. And because you can't change the number of points on the map, you can't add elevation. Because you can't change the number of points, you can't change the pacing. People forget that Code 1 had different capping speeds, and cutoffs actually worked like they're supposed to. Like, it's impossible. I think Code 2 will die out over time. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be some diehard people that, I don't like this, I don't like that, right? There'll be people left over in Code 1 and Code 2 that just don't move over, but they should. If it ends up being what I would like it to be, you're going to get the most number of people. You'll get you'll asymptotically approach 0 on Code 1 and Code 2, but it kind of is what it is. Co 1 still has diehard fans. Yes, it does. I know some of them. So, yeah, Co 2 will still have some people. But the Alpha, Zero Co, you're right. The Alpha looks promising. And, like, it could have been, fuck, this could have been awful. This could have been, like, just garbage. And it's not. It looks promising. I just hope Relic's bullshit filter stays strong, because they have a year and a half, maybe even 2 years to keep that filter in a position where they're not being led down the wrong path. So, yeah, no, it looks good. I'm excited. You guys should all be excited too. Are there any more? I've been rambling now for 2.5 hours. Do you guys have any more questions? They have people working internally who will lead them down the wrong path? Maybe. Why am I so handsome? You can thank my parents for that one. Oh, dude, European Swallows. Come on. One of the greatest movies of all time. Do you think they will try to sell skins and commanders? This is actually a part that worries me a little bit. The unladen swallows, obviously. Because they're under Sega, anyone who's played... I'll actually pull up my Steam here so we can look at this. Anyone who knows anything about Sega knows that Sega loves to sell DLC. Okay, Total War, like just all this garbage. Things like Blood and Burning, which is just like, hey, units bleed, and now it's in the game. I hope that they are reasonable with that stuff. Like, Relic, if they do this right, they totally deserve to have a lot of advertisers come in and show off their game in tournaments. They deserve people to download parts of their game. I think they should start with skins. They should start with, for infantry and your faction, they should start with building skins. They should start with tank skins. And they should start with voiceovers. What do you mean by voiceovers? I mean, you should be able to take like a rifleman from Co 1 or 2 and apply its voice to the Co 3 rifle if you purchase it. Their voiceover packs for individual units would be sick. And there's actually a lot of lessons from StarCraft 2 that could be learned on how to monetize a game in a way that doesn't break the competitive game. So that is it's kind of my 2 cents on DLC. Lunar Rumble, I didn't see any red cover in the alpha. Do you think they removed it because Code 2 basically got rid of it in many 1v1 maps? No, do you think they removed it? I mean, if it's not there, they definitely removed it, but did they remove it from the entire game? I don't know. I hope not, because red cover still has a dimensional place to play in map design for sure. Crossroads has red cover on it, and a bunch of maps have red cover on it. The water should be red cover, things like that. I hope they didn't get rid of it. It has to be intelligently applied to the environment. You can't just shit red cover everywhere. But I don't think they got rid of it. It's reasonable to suspect maybe they did, but if they did, they shouldn't. They should definitely keep red cover. The ability, again, it's all about flexibility. It's like you can just delete all this shit if you want, and like, your players, you're playing this, you're doing this, and this is what we want you to do, and that's all you're going to do. Like, you need to give people flexibility. It's super, super important in any game to do that, RTSs especially. There's so many ways to play it, so they need to be reasonable about that. Just don't start from zero, yeah. And the other thing, too, is, like, don't forget what this alpha is about. A lot of people have kind of forgotten this, too. Not only is the alpha about improvement, which it clearly is, but it's also to some degree about some press. They want people to enjoy the alpha even if it's super unpolished. And if you make it difficult so units are dying constantly in red cover, you're not going to get that, right? So the maps are probably a little bit... everything's unpolished, so take this with a grain of salt, but they're trying to make this enjoyable for people to start. So, do you think they will only have the game run DX12? No idea. It's a great question. It depends on what kind of engine we're seeing. In I mean, I don't know. Crossroads 3 will be in Italy or Africa? It'll... you can quote me later if I'm wrong, but Italy. It would be in Italy. It's a European... It's a European theater. Maybe we'll have a desert Crossroads and then an Italian Crossroads. We'll have both. How's that? White Flash, if they fix the auto match, folks should have at least a balanced game unlike today. Yeah? Yeah. But the auto match part is important because it's not just like, oh, it cues me correctly and it's you know, the factions are balanced. It's more than that. It's also, this is a comparison of StarCraft 2 and KO2, showing like the interface to look at your statistics. Like a huge part of the ladder is like the accomplishment that you get from doing well in the ladder and looking at where you've been and looking at where you could go and having all of these pieces integratable and easily accessible, looking at things like your match history, maybe the stats for all those matches. Like, you shouldn't have to watch an entire replay to see the stats at the end of the goddamn game. You should be able to look at them. It should be instant. A trophy case, I think that's for single player shit. But like, there's so much potential with a new ladder if they do it right. It could, like, KO1 ladder was okay. The KO2 ladder was okay. They're not great. They're kind of garbage. There are plenty of RTSs that make kick-ass ladders. StarCraft 2 is probably the most pronounced. Built-in leagues. You know, the ability, like, Smash Bros. Has the ability to just make tournaments on a whim. You invite people, bam, the tournament's happening. I know that's a different game, but still, like, looking at this kind of outside of yourself and thinking about what could be done is so goddamn important for the ladder specifically, because the ladder is what keeps the game going after the campaign's done. When the campaign's done and everyone's done all the single player shit, there's nothing else to play except for the ladder and then the casual campaign, the casual match stuff. You know, you can only play the same co-op campaign over and over so many times. So this multiplayer part is going to be critical, and it can be a sustainable income for Relic if it gets big enough with advertisers and all the ways that Blizzard has made money off it. So, and all the other companies. I mean, Microsoft does stuff with AoE 2. I hear some people like, you can't do that. That's not a thing. Oh, okay. So you just don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. So, do you have any suggestions for a unique game mode in KO3 from this one? Yes. I think that they're gonna. It sounds like, there's been some talk about like they're gonna have like customizable commanders for the regular ladder, and that's fine. But having a mode where you have like a standard ladder that's kick-ass, and then having another ladder that's like super goofy with like because Coho was out of control. Company Heroes Online was just madness. The whole thing. Everything was overpowered, which made it fun and out of control, but it had its own little system built in. And I could see him making modes like that more than just the standard ladder. You could make another ranked system for different modes. You could maybe make a Total War campaign map where you... like a multiplayer or a co-op Total War campaign. The system in KO1 from where they had like, you're here and they're just sending units at you. I forget what's Operation Stonewall. That wasn't great, but that could be a kick-ass versus AI mode that's polished. And you can actually have your units, you and your buddy, like build your base up, and you build up in the environment around you, and then like the map expands, and then they send guys at you, and you hold them off, and you got to expand more, and they send more. There's all kinds of stuff you could do with that. Besides VPs, the modes that they've worked on right now, like you have to cap all your opponent's points, like all the points on the map, and you win, or there are like these little mini modes where there are snipers on the map and you got to search all the buildings. Those are all awesome. I didn't mention that and I should have. Those are all cool. More stuff like that should be a part of it. They have to be super, super careful about ladder. Ladder is probably VP only. It almost has to be VP only. But again, it's not just about the ladder. The ladder is super important. It's the most important to me, but it's not the most important to everyone. And we need to get everybody. Everything should be done right. Like, we should do everything. So these other modes that we've seen, if you do skirmish, I think they're cool. I think they should do more stuff like that. Will we get blue ball for Code 3? I don't know what that means. If Code 3 fails, what will be the future of Code 2? If it fails, I don't know. If Code 3 just shit the bed, I almost don't want to speculate because things look so good right now. I only want to think about what it can be that's good. Because we could sit here all day and talk, what if an asteroid hits the Earth? Like, doesn't really matter because we'll all be dead. Like, so, I'm going to no comment that. God, I love Kraken. Any other questions, guys? It's Saturday. My wife's with the in-laws, so I have a day where nothing's happening, which is it's been good. Love my wife to death, but what if asteroids hit the Earth? You might as well just try to headbutt the asteroid, because if you survive, it's gonna fucking suck. Show gameplay. Yeah, we could actually play some Code 3. It's not a terrible idea. Me and Elpern were freaking shredding Code 2 the other day. We can just keep doing Q&A and just play Code. That's fine with me. Do you think Relic will support the game with tournaments with Code 3? Yes, Captain Frog. Yes, they will. I have no doubt about that. If they're doing if they're doing Code 2 tournaments like maybe 6 months ago, whatever the last one was,
and welcome to the Company of Heroes.
They'll be supporting Code 3. I actually want to watch this. I know you guys have all seen it, but
I'm the executive producer of Company of Heroes 3. From all of the Company of Heroes 3 team at Relic, thank you for joining our community co-development program. You're about to experience our pre-alpha preview, a very early glimpse at part of our new single-player campaign. Of course, the full Company of Heroes 3 campaign will take place on a much grander scale than what you will be experiencing in the pre-alpha preview. It's important to mention that this is not an early access build or a polished marketing demo. We've created this as a free and focused hands-on experience to get your feedback on specific new features that are early in development. Because we are still pre-alpha, this preview does not represent the final game content, quality, or performance. So expect some rough edges. It's a long road to victory. And
expect some rough edges.
Your help and feedback. You'll have access to numerous missions in occupied Italy, dynamic skirmish battles, and you'll go hands-on with our new turn-based dynamic campaign map.
They're being transparent.
In the port
I mean,
town
fuck,
of Naples.
what do you want?
You'll be fighting to secure control of surrounding cities and resources with the ultimate goal of capturing Monte Cassino. We encourage you to try out different tactics and battle plans with each playthrough, and we'd love to get your feedback from the in-game survey. For all of you
Relic.
fans, just
do the
quick
survey
note,
too. I'm not sure how many
we are
people have done that.
planning
I did a little bit.
Early hands-on experience focused purely on PvP and co-op.
So that's coming
Stay
later.
tuned.
The PvP's coming later.
We're
Just
really
keep that in
looking
mind.
forward to seeing you on the
You need to
co-development
muscle
forums
yourself
over
into the
at
advisory
companyofheroes.com.
council.
So have fun and thank you for helping us make Company of Heroes 3 the best game it can be.
I'm gonna be honest. They had apparently 70 people that were invited to play Code before this pre-alpha. I commented this on code2.org. I was not one of them. So yeah, I don't know how to do that. Let's see. Let's do. What do you guys want to see? Campaign or skirmish? Let's do the fucking campaign, actually. Skirmish? Alright. You got it. Skirmish for the warm-up. I don't need to warm up. I've had a few drinks. I'm ready to plow ahead. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions about stuff, just go balls deep here. I did want to play some more code today. Your child's more important than the bureaucracy of a video game. You're 100% right, Eva Tribble. And he's going to be spoiled beyond all reason. I'm super pumped. A lot of people are like, oh, the kid's brutal. And I'm like, yeah, for a bit, and then it gets awesome. Like, I'm super pumped.
Hold on to them and repel the enemy. They won't give up without a fight, though.
Thank God I'm playing
The
Americans.
central point will be the focus of the enemy assault. Protect it at all costs.
Let's move out. Let's secure that ground. We're moving out, fellas.
How do you make a baby?
We're up, boys.
Well, when a man loves a woman very much.
Combat engineers on the line.
Can't actually leave this point. Oh, dude, the sound effect for just looking at the barracks. That is Co 1, and it makes my rose-tinted glasses rock hard.
We're gonna drive into the line and secure that ground.
Standard capping point circles is something else I didn't talk about. Or maybe I did. This is actually a great improvement. Like, we used to have to draw it, and we could never get a circle right. It was a pain in the ass. This is like kind of an over-the-UI piece of element piece that does that for you. I think they should give us the ability to change the size of these circles if we want. Not that we will,
Let's get it done, boys.
but giving people flexibility is huge. If you want uncapped FPS, you need to set the FPS cap, then save it. Okay. I have not dicked around with any of that. The AI is also, like, hilariously easily beatable right now. What have you revised Co 1 again starting your... Have you revised Co 1 again before starting your Co 3 feedback? What do you mean by that,
We're up, boys. Inside.
Mr. Triple J?
All right. Let's move like we got it perfect.
Break it down. We gotta
Stood.
move.
Loud and clear. Check the front here. Keep alert. Germans
might probe the area for deployment. Got orders, boys. Follow me.
Revisited. Have you revisited Co 1 again before starting your Co 3? Yes, I have. I booted up every... I mean, I didn't need to boot up Co 2. I played that enough. But I did boot up Co 1 again to feel it. And I also... a lot of the guys from the Reborn clan came back to try out Co 3. And some of the guys like Marines, some of you guys have probably heard of him. The guy who came up with the 4ES strat back in the Co 1 days. Very good 1v1 player. Smart guy. He commented that Co 3 feels more like Co 1. It's very important that guys like that make those comments. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, because he's going to perceive things differently than I will. But if he's perceiving that, and he fucking hates Co 2, from a feel perspective, it's a good thing. It's a great thing, actually. Let's get a sniper out just for funsies.
Get on it, fella. On your feet. Let's go. No
We're
lagging
just gonna
behind.
wait here. These are new rocks.
Stay here, boys. Come on.
Well, that's a custom input.
Move your ass. Go.
See, like, some people are talking about, like, oh, how does the faction design, like, guys, we don't know how the faction design's set up. I start with 5 fucking buildings, like. The sound effects are sick. Like the new MP40 sounds. Sounds so sick. But you'll notice like how I'm clicking on the units and the sound effects are so loud I can't really hear what the units are saying. Like now that it's quiet,
Oh, goddammit. Move complete. Target secure.
like now I can hear them. And that's good.
Go, boys.
But you know, a lot of these voiceovers are being muddled inside of the rest of the game because we can't hear them because there's too much other shit going on.
Capture and hold. Capture and hold. And moving. Move, move, move. Throw it now.
Like, their grenades sound awesome. The rifle fire sounds sick.
Our tactical point's being captured.
I do have to get used to the new hotkeys. And you can also tell little bugs like I'm going to throw my grenades. Whenever they stop moving, I'll just throw one. See this little bar right here? The bar's not filling up. And it's supposed to tell you like how the action's being completed, like how much time there is left. Little things like that need to be fixed, but I'm not going to be like, well, like, you need to fix this right now. This is the most important thing. Like, Jesus Christ. Shoot me in the head. Flamethrower look. Yes! The flamethrower look is dope. Like, there is one difference between Co 1 and Co 2 where the Co 2 flame effect, like the units could run. You hear that? A bang! Totally unique sound effect for the sniper rifle. A streak on the map. Bam! He's responsive. He's not cloaked right now, so he's killable, but if I move him into cover, now he's usable. I can... Fuck, man, it's perfect. It's perfect. There is a little bit of a wait. It's not... But there should be a little bit of a wait. Not too much. I feel like that's 1,000 times better than Co 2. The Co 2 sniper takes for fucking ever. Another thing that's good is the... That's true, in life, frag grenades don't do that, but you're trying to make it engaging as well. You going around this? Is this a cliff? That is a cliff. Okay. Yeah, like if I try to pan, like it's kind of janky and it's not great, but they can fix that. I'm not worried about that. Oh boy. That's another thing you'll want to notice is universal upgrades. I'm not actually got a Calipia yet. See, like this thing doesn't quite. Whoop. I can't hear the vehicle engines. That's a giant bummer. Universal upgrades are something that should be considered. Co 1 had universal upgrades and it was fine. Co 1 also had call-ins and it was fine. Both of those things were not good for Co 2. But the idea that that entire system shouldn't be considered is wrong. Everything should be considered right now. Everything. So, it's a work in progress. There, skirmish. Suck a dick. Yeah, USF. Remember, guys, so universal upgrades for the Americans in this had bars. In Co 1, the USF had a universal bar upgrade, and then Volk's Grenadiers had, and regular Grenadiers had to individually upgrade things. But that means the universal bar upgrade costs fuel. The other one costs munis. So if the Americans in this case are using a fuel upgrade and the other's using a muni upgrade, this fuel's been burned off. Now the Axis have more fuel to use for light vehicles, it's faster teching, okay? These things should balance each other out. There's no reason that universal upgrades can't be an option for the multiplayer factions. It's entirely viable if it's designed that way. But you can't design a game like Co 2 is designed and say, oh, now I'm going to change to have universal. Like, that doesn't work. Same thing with call-ins. They don't work in Co 2. They can work in Co 1. So they can totally work in Co 3. It's just how you design it. Nothing should be ruled out right now. Nothing. Almost nothing. Well, Co 2 had a system where it was like the Americans were a bit stronger, like they had momentum early on, and then the Axis had momentum later, so there was incentive for one to attack, like one to do more damage and take more VPs early. So, Co-1 vanilla, and I said that in those articles, it's important that Relic looks very closely at the Co-1 factions and how they interact with each other. And they clearly did that to some degree. Asymmetric vet was an interesting idea for sure. I'm not sure about like purchasing vet, but could you have different kinds of vet, like different ways to obtain vet? Like maybe. They just need to think about it and be careful about what they're committing to. Are we gonna play campaign now? What do you guys want to do? Doesn't matter to me at all. Should purchase upgrades for earned vet. Yeah, they do that with the Americans. Go to. Does it drop me right into the Yes, I do. My existing ones is just a shit show.
In Company of Heroes 3, no two playthroughs are the same. You can choose to recreate or rewrite history. The Italian campaign begins with a
I thought the guy who was doing the voiceover was the same guy from Co-1. It's not. I got excited. I was like, wait, how the fuck did I miss that?
The player used the power of the Indian Artillery Company and their devastating weaponry to crush any opposition.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
The player also attempted to land.
If you guys want to link me how to do it, I'll do it. I'll be the Germans. I'd love to try them out.
From the Germans. In response, the player chose to deploy their British armored here to support the offensive. Finally, they broke through the German defense, which gave them a powerful presence in Italy. Partisan forces joined the Allied efforts, sabotaging bridges to prevent German retreats. The player took advantage of this by using the Air Force to drop a special operations company behind the trapped enemy.
Take a look at
the next objective is to secure Naples, and this is where you come in.
File. So do I need... It looks like I need to start the game. Oh, I can just download his. Well, that's nice of him. Where do I put it, though? All right, yeah. We can Alt F4 this. Let's see if we can get this to work. Ah, he gets documents. Okay, yeah, it's an autosave. We gotta dig. Oop, that ain't it. Downloads. Let's grab this guy. So my computer wakes up. There we go. Here's 3. Playback. Wasn't playback? Oh no, save cans campaign. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Code dev. Save games. Ah, I see. Campaign. Italy. Autosave. Okay. Bear with me. All right. Let's see how that works. Whoops.
Hello. and
Hello.
welcome to the company.
I guess that's what I do. I did not read it. Oh, my neck. It's fucking exciting times. Come here. Good boy. Come here, Bubba. Come, up, up. Yeah, you're out. Come here. Come. My dog's saying, hi, Bubba. Come on. Come on. Up. Good boy. Watch your head, buddy. Yeah, I see my boy. Yeah. Play a bit of code. This is so good. This dog fucking loves to play fetch. I know you do. I know. You're so good. You guys have been napping all day. I know. He's a very good little boy. Very handsome boy. You say hi? Hello. No, I know. You're so good. Alright, go ahead, Bubba. Seems to be stuck loading. Nope. It's actually crashing. That's actually predictable. I'll have to get that working at some point. But guys, I'm gonna leave you now. I think I want to go play with my dogs. I hope you guys keep up with stuff I'll be putting out. The Co3 article will be out at some point. It's going to take time to put that whole thing together because it's enormous. It will be enormous. And again, keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the prize. There's a lot of ways for this to go wrong, and we have such a good start. Let's keep the party going. So, I hope that wasn't too rambly for you, and see you guys next time. I'm going to dump you off with Ishtari because he's in the middle of hell. Have a good one, guys.